Okay, so yeah, that thumbnail and title text might seem a bit harsh or excessive, and I know some of you might not be happy with it, but the fact is that the reaction to Star Citizen 1.0 has been mixed, well, put it mildly. Now before you start typing comments about Clickblade, do let me explain what this video is about. First, I'll give you a brief overview of what Star Citizen 1 is aiming for as it approaches its full release. Then I'll talk about the community's reaction, which has been both positive and negative, both with very good reason. After that, I'll explain why personally I'm not thrilled about the direction of Star Citizen 1 and the direction it's heading in, and lastly, I'll step outside my personal preferences to acknowledge why I think the current plans are ultimately a positive step for the game. So yeah, as you can tell, this is a pretty big mixed bag for me, and that's part of why this video took a while to put together. I had to sit down and really think about how to present this, because while some people are excited about what's been revealed, it's not quite what I was hoping for. Now I'm sure I'll come across as jumping between different opinions, but Star Citizen is a complex subject, and I've never been one to cling to a single viewpoint. It's important to look at things from multiple angles, I've always believed that, and that's what I aim to do here. So check out the timestamps in the video description if you want to jump between the sections that interest you the most. So what is Star Citizen 1.0? Well, it's CIG's attempt to release a fully fledged, well-rounded, solid game with comprehensive and complete game loops. And whilst it might not contain all the features initially that CIG have promised, it will be a full experience. The idea also seems to be putting players centre and front. They're going to be the full focus of the game, at least it seems that way, and in many ways they will guide the direction of the galaxy. The 1.0 release then introduces a persistent universe that reacts to player actions, providing a seamless sandbox environment where players' decisions actually have consequences. Now, this is a key feature here. It's something I'll be talking about a little bit further on. But the fact here is that yes, to all intents and purposes, Star Citizen 1.0 is a sandbox game, and it leans more towards the survival, base building type of survival game. And yeah, that was news to me. So, to guide players through this big universe, Star Citizen 1 is going to introduce a main story arc. Players here will be able to engage with that story at their own pace, and completing it grants what's called citizenship. This is something that's been an idea with the game right from the very start, the idea of being a Star Citizen. And this will be within the United Empire of Earth. In game terms, that means it will unlock certain privileges. Being a citizen will do that, and that means things like land ownership, as well as supposedly political influence. Central to progression, of course, is the guild system, and this connects players to various professions such as mining, trading, exploration, combat, and piracy. Guilds, which are effectively run by the game itself or by the factions within the game, offer missions, reputation gains, and unique rewards, allowing players to specialize and progress in their chosen careers while influencing the game's dynamics. And yeah, that might sound a little bit more like EVE Online than many people were expecting. Moving on, we come to a dynamic economy. Now, the game features a dynamic economy, and this is going to be powered by an in-game simulation, which CIG have referred to as StarSim. It's a system that ensures that the universe reacts to player activities, with prices fluctuating based on supply and demand. This means that there should be meaningful transactions like repairs and maintenance, which have significant costs, and this, they say, will add depth to the economic decisions. Taxes and insurance systems are also in place, and this includes an inheritance tax system. Well, there's no getting away from that, is there? Not even in a game. As well as ship insurance with different tiers. This will have further impact on the gameplay, so there is a whole discussion going on the internet on the ship insurance and warranty that goes along with it, but that's something we'll talk about in a future video. It's another subject for another time. Meanwhile, player progression, which involves purposeful gameplay loops where activities like mining, crafting and building reputation feed into larger goals, and this creates an interconnected game world. So yeah, if you're mining, this will ultimately lead to other activities. It's not just mining for the sake of mining, it does serve an overall purpose, and this is something I've wanted to see in a game for a very, very long time. It is something that's in titles such as EVE Online, where obviously all the materials you mine do go into active construction of real-world items, but when you come to a game like Elite Dangerous, it's all kind of faked behind the scenes whilst you mine, and it does have repercussions in terms of the price you're offered for that, the truth is that those materials aren't in turn used for real-world production. So yeah, in Star Citizen, it's going to be leaning more towards the realism side. Now, Star Systems. You may remember years ago that it was mentioned Star Citizen would have 100 star systems. Well, at launch, Star Citizen 1.0 isn't going to have 100 star systems. In fact, it's going to have 5. The difference and the reason being that all of these are going to be far more complex than the original outline. So these 5 systems will be Stanton, Pyro, Nyx, Castra, and Terra. Each star system presents different environments, from corporate-controlled worlds to lawless frontiers, and this should provide a whole range of different opportunities and game styles for people to try out. So these living environments should have their own economies even, politics and cultures, and this should hopefully give for a bit more of an immersive experience, as well as give more opportunities when it comes to exploration. So yeah, players can engage in various activities tailored to each system's characteristics, from lawful commerce to high-risk adventures in unregulated space. And it seems that somewhat here they're going to have a bit of a similar system to, again, EVE Online, with different star systems having different levels of security, all the way down to nullsec, where you won't get much assistance at all. Whilst in systems with higher security, if another player attacks you, NPCs will turn up to take them on and kind of control the problems. Now, base building and space stations, as I suggested earlier, is going to be a thing. Players can establish and customize ground bases and construct player-owned space stations, and these are truly massive. They serve as operational hubs and symbols of achievement for players and for corporations. Building a space station is a significant undertaking, requiring collaboration and lots of resources. Stations themselves feature modules like bridges for command operations, engineering decks for maintenance, hangar decks for housing ships, and customizable expansions. It also have a need for defensive measures, which will allow players to protect their assets and stations, which can be expanded with other modules like dry docks for, get this, crafting capital ships. Yes, with Star Citizen 1.0, players will be able to craft their very own ships. So I guess so much for the pledge store and purchasing ships. Of course, it seems that the pledge store is going to continue on being a thing. You'll be able to buy ships, but you're also going to make your very own. And this includes crafting ships such as the Bengal Carrier. Yeah, very, very large ships. In terms of endgame content and the player impact on the game world, endgame content includes high-level missions, dynamic events, and large-scale conflicts such as station warfare. Players can also influence the universe through their actions, affecting economies, politics, and territorial control. The game balances lawful and unlawful systems, offering a whole range of different experiences based on player choices, with mechanics for piracy, ship theft, and base raiding. So yeah, there is mechanics here for stealing other people's ships as well. Again, like I said earlier, I'm not going to go into extensive detail on all of this because the video would go on for a very, very long time. There are some other videos out there that are worth watching, but yeah, I wanted to give you an outline and then some impressions too. But I will link some other videos for you to check out if you want something a little bit more detail orientated. So, moving on. The reaction to Star Citizen 1 within the community has been anything but uniform. Many players are excited about the new direction, a player-driven universe that allows for deep community engagement and the ability to truly shape the galaxy. This aspect of freedom and the influence is something that really does appeal to a lot of players, a lot of people who have been waiting for a game that offers this level of player agency. However, there's also a segment of the community that is somewhat less enthusiastic, and I think their concerns are equally valid. These players were initially drawn to the promise of a living universe built by the developers full of NPC-driven activity where they could participate without having to generate all the content themselves. For them, the pivot toward a sandbox experience where players are the main content drivers feels like a departure from what they signed up for. One area that has been hotly debated is the concept of solo play versus collaborative play. Now, some players expected to have NPC crews running their larger ships, making solo play a viable option, and this is something that CIG have spoken about many times in the past, and I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that CIG said that feature would be available at launch, but all that seems to have changed with their announcement and their revelations of Star Citizen 1.0, which puts emphasis on player collaboration and features like AI blades for specific ship functions. The full NPC crew concept seems to have been sidelined, at least for now, and we can see CIG talking about that in this quote on the screen. So this has left some backers feeling that the game's promise to accommodate different playstyles has been somewhat compromised. Another point of division is the endgame focus on large-scale collaborative efforts like space station building and crafting capital ships. While some of these features seem amazing, they're amazing opportunities to shape the universe and make their mark, others feel that the game is putting too much emphasis on cooperative content, leaving solo players at a disadvantage. So it's important to understand here that these divided opinions reflect the complexity of Star Citizen's vision. It's a game that is trying to be many things to many people, and naturally that leads to diverse expectations and reactions. It's the difference between a developer-crafted living universe where players are participants in a rich NPC-driven environment versus a sandbox universe where the players themselves are the driving force behind the content. Rightly or wrongly, many in the community are viewing this as a fundamental shift in the game, and it's something that has obviously caused a lot of divided opinion. So many players love the idea of a world that evolves independently of them, a universe they can explore, influence, but not necessarily controlled. On the other hand, there are those who thrive on the idea of a player-driven narrative where every station, every ship and battle is a direct result of player actions and collaborations. These two very different visions are not necessarily mutually exclusive, but the emphasis on sandbox elements has undoubtedly shifted the focus more towards the later player-centric experience. So, what about my personal feelings on all of this? Well, to be honest, I'm very torn. On the one hand, I appreciate what CIG are doing here with Star Citizen 1 and its dynamic living world. On the other hand, I'm not particularly excited about the heavy emphasis on sandbox gameplay where players drive so much of the content. Things like building space stations, crafting capital ships, and gathering resources. For me, I enjoy the occasional base building or crafting, but I prefer those as side elements of a game, not as the main focus. Right now, I'm struggling to understand whether these player-driven mechanics will become the core focus and the core experience of Star Citizen, or just be part of the wider set of features Star Citizen is, or was known for. And it also seems I'm not entirely alone in that, despite CIG going out of their way with a rather extensive and very detailed presentation. There's quite a lot of players out there who right now are pretty unsure as to where things stand about this specific subject. So yeah, it feels like Star Citizen 1 is shifting towards a player-driven sandbox, with players generating the content rather than a handcrafted reactive world built by the developers. That said, obviously it's not a case of being one or the other. There is a Venn diagram here where much of the content where Star Citizen 1 does reside right in the center of the overlap here. But yeah, there's also the divide between what's two very different ideas of what Star Citizen could be. So personally, what ultimately attracted me to Star Citizen in the beginning was the idea of a living universe, one that involves independently of the players, where we as citizens are simply living within a world that feels alive and real. Obviously, base building was going to be a goal here and very much a focus. It's been that way for a very long time, but just the extent of what that now seems to be has been somewhat surprising to me. Ultimately though, I am more than able to stand back and understand that those are my subjective feelings, that's my subjective take, and I can look at this more objectively. So yeah, that's what my personal take is, you know that. But what do I feel about what CIG are doing overall here? Well, somewhat paradoxically, I feel that CIG are making a good step for the game here. This is a good direction overall. Whilst it might not be my personal preference, it may not be to my personal tastes, I do recognise that for Star Citizen as a whole, it is a very good objective. I mean, it's hard not to acknowledge that Star Citizen 1's current direction makes a lot of sense, especially in today's gaming landscape. The sandbox approach allows for a deeper community connection, players working together to build something, leaving their own mark on the universe. It's definitely an interesting move that puts the community at the centre of the overall experience, and if CIG can manage that balance well, it could be what keeps players coming back for years to come. It also means that CIG are now firmly stepping forward with a solid direction for Star Citizen. Up until this point, there's been a huge list of different promises and features that Star Citizen has been promising over the years, and obviously not all of them can be completed initially. And whilst I'm sure over time most of them will come, a lot of them are not going to be featured fully in Star Citizen 1.0. It seems ultimately those will come later down the line. For now, CIG are very firmly committed to creating a solid, well-grounded overall experience, and I think what they're doing here with Star Citizen 1 is certainly a very good direction. So that's why I think that despite my reservations, Star Citizen 1's ultimately is a positive step. It may not be the handcrafted NPC-driven world that I initially hoped for, but it's shaping up to be a universe where the players themselves are the lifeblood, making it evolve and grow over time. If CIG sticks to their plans with this version of Star Citizen, it could certainly end up being a game with unparalleled depth, where player choices and community activities genuinely shape the future. So yeah, Star Citizen 1 is a mixed bag for me, and I think it's fair to say the community as well feels much the same way. At least quite a few people in there. It's clear there's quite a bit of division. Now, let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. Are you excited about the sandbox aspects, or are you, like me, still wondering what happened to the reactive universe driven by NPCs? Or do you ultimately feel that what has been revealed in Star Citizen 1 is a good mix of both? Is there something here for everyone? Either way, it's certainly a fascinating journey here with Star Citizen. I don't think anyone can deny that, and it's very interesting to see where all of this goes. Thanks for watching this video all the way through. It's certainly been an interesting one. There's another video linked on the screen right here if you want to watch that. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll catch you next time.